There is a peculiar paradox in human existence. The more we cling, the more we suffer. We chase after love, security, success, and validation as if they are things to be grasped, as if life itself is some grand game of possession. But in this desperate clinging, we find only anxiety, only the perpetual fear of loss. We tie ourselves to expectations, to people, to ideas. Detachment is not about indifference, nor is it about running away. It is the realization that nothing truly belongs to us, and that is precisely why we are free. You see, the world is in a state of constant motion. Everything changes. Relationships evolve, circumstances shift, identities dissolve. The tighter you hold on, the more painful it is when the inevitable happens. And yet, the moment you let go, something miraculous occurs. Life begins to flow effortlessly, unburdened by the weight of control. Imagine standing on a cliff's edge, watching the waves below. If you resist the wind, fear grips you, muscles tense, mind races. But if you lean into it, if you trust the movement, suddenly there is ease. This is the essence of detachment, not a rejection of life, but an embrace of its transient nature. The more you resist change, the more it torments you. The more you let go, the more you align with the very rhythm of existence itself. People fear detachment because they mistake it for loss. They think, if I let go, I will have nothing. But the truth is, when you let go, you have everything. You are no longer defined by what you own, who approves of you, or the roles you play. You exist in your most natural state. Fluid, unbounded, alive. The need to control dissolves, and with it, the endless cycle of suffering. What remains is presence. What remains is peace. It only takes one decision, one realization, the willingness to release, to stop clutching at life as if it is something that can be possessed. And in that moment of surrender, everything changes. There is a peculiar way in which human beings create their own suffering. It is not the world that binds us, not fate, not some external force pressing down upon us. It is our own relentless clinging. We grasp at people, at things, at identities, at ideas, all in the desperate hope that by holding on tightly enough, we can make life predictable, make it safe, make it ours. But life is not something that can be possessed. It moves, it shifts, it changes like the wind. And the moment we try to capture it, we are already in conflict with its nature. Consider love. People fall in love and immediately begin to fear losing it. They become obsessed with making it last, with ensuring that it does not change, that the person they cherish remains as they are forever. And yet, love, real love, is not about possession. It is not something you can trap in a box and keep as it is. The very moment you try to own it, it starts to fade. You become anxious, controlling, always looking for signs that it is slipping away. But was it ever yours to begin with? Or was it simply an experience flowing through you like a river that nourishes you as it passes, but cannot be held in your hands? It is the same with success. A person works for years to achieve something, wealth, recognition, a position of power. And the moment they attain it, they become terrified of losing it. The joy of the journey is replaced by the fear of its end. They hold on desperately, trying to secure their place, to prevent change, to stop the natural flow of life from taking away what they believe they have earned. But no matter how tightly they cling, everything is subject to time. Fortunes rise and fall, reputations shift, the body ages, the mind changes. And yet, rather than moving with this rhythm, people fight it. They create stress, anxiety, and despair, all because they cannot accept the nature of existence. That nothing is fixed, nothing is permanent, and nothing can truly be owned. Look at relationships. Friendships, marriages, families, they all exist in a delicate balance, always evolving, always shifting. But the moment we try to freeze them, to keep them exactly as they were in a perfect moment of the past, we introduce suffering. We place expectations on others, demanding that they behave in ways that align with our desires. My child, as if these labels could prevent people from growing, changing, becoming who they are meant to be. But people are not possessions. They are not fixed objects that can be kept in place. And yet, because of our attachment, we become wounded when they change, as if life has betrayed us, when in truth it has only continued its natural course. Even our own identities become prisons. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, our past, our achievements, our failures, and then we cling to these narratives as if they define us. I am this kind of person, we say. I do not do that. I am always this way. And so we box ourselves in, fearful of stepping outside of the image we have carefully constructed. But the self is not a fixed thing. It is not a rigid identity carved in stone. It is fluid, ever-changing, a continuous unfolding, and yet, because we attach ourselves to an idea of who we are, we resist this change, creating struggle where there could be ease, suffering where there could be. The truth is, suffering arises not from the nature of life, but from our resistance to it. A river flows and we try to dam it. The seasons change and we try to hold on to summer forever. People come and go and we mourn their absence instead of appreciating the time they were here. We suffer because we believe that things should stay as they are, that we should be able to hold on to moments, people, and experiences, but this is not how life works. And when we resist life, we create tension, fear, and suffering within ourselves. But there is another way. Imagine for a moment a person standing in the ocean. If they fight the waves, if they tense up and try to resist the motion of the water, they struggle, they exhaust themselves, they feel as though they are drowning. But if they surrender, if they allow themselves to float, to move with the waves rather than against them, they find peace. The ocean has not changed. The waves still rise and fall, but their relationship with it has transformed. This is the power of detachment. It is not about rejecting life or withdrawing from it. It is about flowing with it rather than against it. It is about experiencing each moment fully without grasping at it, without trying to make it last forever. It is about loving without possessing, achieving without fearing loss, living without demanding that life conform to our expectations. When you let go, suffering dissolves. You stop resisting what is. You stop clinging to things that were never truly yours to begin with. The world is always moving. It always has been and it always will be. The question is, will you move with it, or will you suffer in your attempt to hold it still? There is a great misunderstanding about detachment. Many hear the word and think it means coldness, indifference, or an emotional withdrawal from life. They imagine a person who does not care, who walks away from love, success, or relationships without feeling. But this is not detachment. That is avoidance. And avoidance is still a form of fear. True detachment is not about rejecting the world. It is about being fully present in it, without being imprisoned by it. It is the difference between holding a bird in your hands gently, allowing it to rest, versus clutching it so tightly that you suffocate the very thing you are trying to keep. Look at the way people interact with love. They say, "I love you." But what they often mean is, "I need you to behave in a certain way so that I can feel secure." They place conditions, expectations, and invisible chains upon the people they claim to love, believing that control will create stability. But love is not something that can be trapped. The moment you turn it into a possession, into something that must follow a specific structure to make you happy, you are no longer loving, you are grasping. And grasping is rooted in fear, not love. Detachment does not mean you do not love deeply. It means you love fully, without fear. You love without demanding that the other person never change, never leave, never disappoint you. You love as one admires a sunset, not trying to freeze it in time, not attempting to capture it in a box, but simply appreciating it for what it is in that moment. And because you are not attached to controlling it, the love remains pure, alive, free from the anxiety of possession. Consider ambition. Many people misunderstand detachment and think it means giving up goals, giving up success, or not striving for anything. But detachment does not mean inaction. It does not mean a life without effort, without growth, without dreams. The difference is that an attached person pursues success because they believe their happiness depends on it, while a detached person pursues it for the joy of the process itself. One is a prisoner to outcomes, the other is free. Look at the person who chases wealth, convinced that if they just reach a certain number, they will finally feel secure, finally be free of worry. But once they get there, they feel empty, restless. So they set a new goal, another number, another milestone. The cycle never ends. They are attached to an idea that happiness is somewhere in the future, always just out of reach. They never arrive. They never rest. They never feel enough. Now look at someone who is detached. They may also build, create, work hard, but they do so with a different energy. They are not lost in the illusion that happiness is waiting for them at the finish line. They know that happiness is not in the outcome, but in the doing. They move with passion, with purpose, but without the desperation of clinging. And because they are not bound by attachment, they are not crushed by failure, nor are they enslaved by success. Detachment is often confused with not caring, when in fact it is the highest form of presence. When you are detached, you are here, now. You are not lost in worries about the future, nor are you dragging the past with you. You see things as they are, rather than through the distorted lens of desire and fear. You are engaged with life, fully participating, but without the suffering that comes from trying to force things to be a certain way. Think of the ocean. It does not cling to its waves. It does not grasp at each ripple, desperate to hold on, nor does it resist the tides as they come and go. It simply moves endlessly, effortlessly, allowing all things to arise and pass in their own time. This is the way of detachment. Not resistance, not avoidance, but flow. People cling to control because they fear uncertainty. They want guarantees, assurances, stability in a world that is inherently unstable. But attachment to control is an illusion. No amount of effort will stop life from changing. No amount of grasping will prevent the inevitable ebb and flow of circumstances. But the paradox is this: the moment you let go of the need for control, you feel peace. Imagine holding onto a rope, pulling with all your might, muscles tense, hands burning. Now imagine letting go. The relief, the ease, the lightness. This is the feeling of detachment. Nothing has changed except your willingness to release. And in that release, you realize you were never truly holding anything at all. Detachment does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. It does not make you cold. It makes you deeply present. You are no longer acting out of fear, no longer enslaved by expectations, no longer exhausted from chasing things that were never meant to be held. You move freely, love deeply, live fully. Not because you are clinging, but because you are flowing. The mind is constantly seeking security. It wants to hold on to something, to define itself by something, to root itself in something permanent. But nothing in life is truly permanent. Not relationships, not possessions, not even the self we think we are. And yet, people spend their lives resisting this truth, attaching their sense of identity to fleeting things, hoping to build a sense of stability in a world that is always shifting. Look at how people define themselves. They say, I am my job, I am my reputation, I am my relationships, I am my beliefs. But what happens when these things change? What happens when the job is lost, the reputation is tarnished, the relationship ends, or the beliefs evolve? The person who has built their identity on these things suffers, because they have tied their sense of self to something outside of themselves, something that was never meant to last forever. Detachment is not about abandoning life. It is about freeing yourself from the illusion that you are your attachments. You are not your status. You are not your possessions. You are not even the story you have told yourself about who you are. All of these things are just layers, temporary masks, roles played for a time and then released. When you believe too deeply in any one of them, you become rigid, fearful of change, desperate to maintain an image of yourself that no longer fits. Think of a tree. Look at relationships. A person enters your life, and for a time there is love, connection, growth. But what if the relationship changes? What if the paths diverge? Many people will hold on out of fear, out of a desperate need to keep things as they were, rather than allowing them to evolve naturally. And in doing so, they suffocate the very thing they were trying to keep. Detachment is not about walking away from love. It is about loving without possession. It is about appreciating what is, without trying to freeze it in place. Look at personal achievements. A person builds a business, a career, a name for themselves. They work tirelessly, believing that once they reach a certain level of success, they will feel complete. But then when they get there, they are afraid. Afraid of losing it, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of change. They do not enjoy their success because they are too busy protecting it. This is the trap of attachment. It convinces you that happiness is tied to something external, something that must be preserved at all costs. Consider the mind itself. The mind is constantly narrating, constantly identifying, constantly trying to define who you are. It says, this is me, this is not me. It builds walls between self and other, between now and later, between success and failure. It creates attachments, not just to things, but to ideas. And once an idea is held too tightly, it becomes a prison. Look at someone who is attached to being right. They argue, they defend, they refuse to see another perspective, because their identity is tied to their opinions. If they are wrong, then who are they? So they cling, they fight, they suffer. Not because the truth is painful, but because they have made their sense of self dependent on a belief. But the truth does not need defending. It does not need attachment. It simply is. The person who is truly free is not bound by the need to be right, to be seen a certain way, to control how life unfolds. They do not resist change, nor do they fear uncertainty. They know that who they are is not something that can be lost, because it was never in those external things. Imagine a river. It does not cling to any one part of its journey. It does not stop and say, I must stay here in this bend forever. It does not flow effortlessly, allowing the land to shape it, allowing the seasons to change it. This is the way of detachment. Not passivity, not avoidance, but an openness to movement, an acceptance of the ever-changing nature of existence. When you release attachment to identity, you become fluid, adaptable, free. You are no longer afraid of losing something, because you understand that nothing real can ever be truly lost. The self that you thought you were was only ever a temporary shape, like a cloud in the sky, shifting, changing, never fixed. And in this realization, there is peace. Suffering is not in the events themselves, but in the mind's resistance to them. Life unfolds, people come and go, circumstances shift, and yet the mind clings. It clings to what was, to what should be, to what it expected, rather than allowing life to be as it is. This resistance, this inner struggle against the impermanence of things, is what creates suffering. Observe the mind in its attachment. It holds on to past pains, rehearsing them over and over, as if by revisiting them it could rewrite history. It projects into the future, grasping for security, spinning endless possibilities, as if by controlling what has not yet happened, it could avoid discomfort. But life does not operate according to the mind's desires. It moves as it will, indifferent to personal expectations. And so the more one tries to hold on, the more one suffers. Consider a person who has been wronged, betrayed, abandoned, hurt by another. The moment of pain has passed, but the mind holds on to it. It replays the scene, assigns meaning, justifies its suffering. The pain is no longer in the event itself. It is in the refusal to let it go. The person believes that by holding on to the hurt, they are preserving something. Perhaps a sense of justice, perhaps a sense of self-righteousness, perhaps even an identity built around being a victim. But in truth, all they're preserving is their own suffering. The moment detachment enters, suffering begins to dissolve. Not because the past is rewritten, but because one no longer insists on reliving it. one no longer resists what has already happened. The mind relaxes, realizing that it does not need to control, does not need to grasp, does not need to keep defining itself by its wounds. The past happened, yes, but it does not need to be carried. It does not need to be worn like a badge of identity. Look at grief. A person loses someone they love, and the pain is real, deep, overwhelming. But the suffering comes not only from the loss itself, but from the mind's refusal to accept it. It says, this should not have happened, this is wrong. It holds onto the person, onto memories, onto a version of life that no longer exists. And in that grasping, suffering is born. Detachment does not mean one does not love, does not grieve, does not feel. It simply means one does not resist what is. It means allowing the heart to break, allowing the waves of emotion to come and go, without attaching to the idea